My most anticipated show of the year drops tomorrow on Disney+. Let's talk Moon Knight. We follow Stephen Grant, a mild-mannered gift shop employee who becomes plagued with blackouts and memories of another life. He soon discovers that he has dissociative identity disorder and shares his body with Marc Spector, a mercenary who has a deal with the Egyptian god of the moon, Khonshu, and together they become Moon Knight. Now, before I properly begin my spoiler-free review of the first 4 episodes, I want you to start the conversation in the comments below. Let me know if you know anything about the character, if you're excited for the show, if you've seen it as well, what is your favorite episode, anything and everything down there. And thank you to the team at Disney Plus UK for granting me a chance to see these 4 episodes early and having me on the event at the British Museum. It was awesome. And of course, if you love movies and TV, this is the place to be, so consider clicking that subscribe button so you don't miss any future conversation on your favorite movies, TV, and we'll talk about Moon Knight every week. This was my most anticipated show of the year overall, but it was also one of those characters that, as a hardcore comic book nerd, I really wanted to see brought to life. And this show is different in every way. I know you hear that from a ton of people all the time. I refrain from using that all the time, but I used it here because it's very different from anything the MCU, particularly on TV, has done. This is our first brand new character. It's not something that is being a spin-off of a movie. This is not a character that we know from before. This is a brand new character, brand new adventure, and so far doesn't even have a single MCU reference. And one of the many reasons that makes it so different is that Marc Spector / Stephen Grant is an anti-hero. Moon Knight in this show is treated as this very morally ambiguous warrior that is not necessarily a role model. He's not a hero that you can actually properly imagine standing right next to the Avengers. He doesn't have this altruistic attitude towards being a hero. He has his own goals, he has his own life, he's doing this for himself. The fact that he's Moon Knight even feels like a burden, which is something that makes things so exciting. By focusing on Stephen Grant as the lead character, by showing us his perspective first and foremost, we are thrust as an audience into this fractured, disorienting, unpredictable, wild ride that is this adventure. And you feel the weight of that. The first episode really focuses on us seeing his life falling apart little by little until he has to confront that hidden part of him. When Moon Knight has to come out, it feels like a significant thing. It feels like something that has weight. It feels like it matters because it is a choice. This isn't a Captain America situation where it's putting on a suit. It's not an Iron Man situation where he made up his quote-unquote powers. It's not a Thor situation where he was just born with it. It feels like he's letting go a part of himself to become this ruthless, violent warrior that is Moon Knight. And when Moon Knight is on screen, it's amazing. For a while, you don't even see the action. You just see Stephen having these flashes and then waking back up, and then you see what happens to the people that were threatening him. And Oscar Isaac is playing both of these characters extremely well. He brings across the disorientation as Stephen, but he brings across the ruthlessness, the relentlessness in trying to accomplish his mission of Mark. The two characters just bouncing off each other. The way Oscar Isaac plays off of himself is nothing short of sheer brilliance. He cements himself immediately as the MCU's best get ever since Chris Evans as Captain America for me. And the action is great. It's brutal, it's visceral, it's ground and pound. Moon Knight is not trying to get the bad guys away from the innocent. He's beating up the bad guys. He's mauling them. But Mark's wife, who comes into the show in episode 2, She gives a really necessary groundedness to the show and has a really interesting relationship not only with Marc but with Steven as well, where at first she doesn't believe what is going on. Layla, played by May Calamawy, she does a really great job and has great chemistry with Isaac. But of course, Moon Knight is not the only star of the show. We have Mr. Knight as well. At this point, into 4 episodes, I'm still unsure on what they're doing with Mr. Knight himself. It's a fresh interpretation. It's something that is interesting to see where they go with it, but I'm just not too sure about it. I'm not sure it's an interesting enough that makes it a better version of what we have in the comics with Mr. Knight, but every time he comes on screen, it is so entertaining and it is so great to see him come to life, which brings me to talk about the humor of the show, which is really great. Particularly when Steven and Marc are bouncing off one another, just really works. The banter overall is just fantastic, and as the show goes on, we start seeing a little bit less of it because the stakes start getting raised. The tensions are getting higher. Nobody else is finding the situation funny, so Steven acclimates himself to his surroundings. And it's just great to see how Steven and Marc begin to see how one another is necessary, where at first they constantly clash. They don't like sharing this body. They don't like each other. So they always get in each other's way. But slowly but surely, how they start working together and what they give to one another as they're both in their own kind of mission throughout, that's just really interesting. That's a really interesting dynamic, particularly seeing how Isaac plays both sides of this character. You probably heard how the cast and creators have been comparing this show to Fight Club meets Indiana Jones, and that is correct, but I will add, if Tyler Durden was Jason Bourne. That's Moon Knight, and it's played all so incredibly well. It feels like this grand adventure diving deep into this Egyptian mythology and how it connects our character to the moon god Khonshu. And every episode just feels so different, and every episode is so deliberately paced. This is overall, so far, the best paced MCU show, and honestly, it's not even close. Of the 4 episodes I've seen, I don't think there has been a single dud at this point, where you can tell on a story structure the point where the episode ends and it leads directly into another, but each of them tells their own contained story. But of course, a show like this with such a beautifully complex hero with this real tragic narrative happening where these two have their lives taken away from them by the other's existence, you need a great villain, and Ethan Hawke is a sinister motherfucker in this. He's a powerful villain because of how he thinks, because of how he gets to know someone else and uses their knowledge against him. He's also extremely compelling due to how he sees things. He is a man who preaches peace, but you can see the inner anger seeping out at points, while Marc Spector is a very angry man that just lashes out at the world. And the way these two contrast each other is fantastic. What I love most about Arthur Harrow is that he simply uses truth. He manipulates and chooses his words carefully to strike against his opponents, and that's what makes him so scary, but also so compelling, because he's not lying. He's telling the truth. And that makes our hero feel all the more compelling. His vulnerability, his mental condition is exactly what is used against him, because it's the thing that makes him most vulnerable. So when he's letting go a part of himself to become the hero, we feel that weight. And we feel what it takes away from him. And that's just what the MCU does so well overall. It's the character stuff. Obviously, as a production of this size with this budget, it looks fantastic. The visual effects are great. The locations are fabulous. They went into a lot of different locations to shoot this film. You can really tell they went to the deserts of Jordan. They came here to London to shoot it. And the direction overall is just impeccable. Hats off to Mohamed Diab, Justin Benson, and Aaron Moorhead. This feels like the MCU's first true dive into horror. Again, by taking in Steven's perspective, it is so horrifying at points. It really comes across as a horror film, and they take in their exploration of mythology and how they're representing mental health to allow that horror to shine through. The show is overall not afraid to dive into the straight up insanity that a character like Moon Knight naturally brings in any story worth its measure. It's a show that becomes so unpredictable from episode to episode, where you really don't know the avenues it's gonna take, but they're all so interesting, and the way it leaves off in episode 4 blew my mind in a way, as much as I love it, the MCU has not done in a long time. And it really helps how it has stuck so close to the comic books in such a great way, allowing the creativity of these storytellers to shine. Moon Knight stands apart from the pack. There are 2 episodes left, obviously. I can't grade this, but so far I am absolutely adoring this, from the narrative to the characters to the relationships created to the themes explored. The mythology is just really cool, and how it's really setting apart itself from everything else. It's a horror show at its core with a ton of a globe-trotting adventure element to it. So far, Moon Knight is everything I wanted, a complex exploration of a morally ambiguous anti-hero that brings something different to the MCU. A beautifully tragic pairing in Steven and in Marc make proceedings extremely unpredictable and interesting because of that. The writing is complex and gives way for an epic, dark, bold, enigmatic, and absolutely nuts series, and I cannot wait for you guys to see all of it and for me to see the rest. But those are only my thoughts on Moon Knight. I cannot wait to know your thoughts on the first episode. Second, come back for this video every time a new episode comes out. Let me know your thoughts on it, and thank you so much for watching. You are the best, and of course remember to start the conversation. And if you like what you saw here, make sure to click the subscribe button so you don't miss any future conversation on your favorite movies and TV. Thank you so much once more to the team at Disney Plus UK, and thank you to my channel members Bruna and Stuart for making this video possible. And I'll be back tomorrow with a spoiler review for episode 1, and of course we got the Morbius review dropping this week as well. I hope to see you there, and so until the next one, love each other and love the movies.